Okay, let's start with the capital Tillim. In this day, we should send his greatest miracles to. I left you the button, giving you the honor. I think I hear noise out there. To bring miracles to Eretz Yisrael, and there should be peace and quiet around the whole world and Eretz Yisrael, and everything in a very miraculous way that the whole world should see that the Eibishter runs the world. And which basically means Mashiach will be here. Lam Natseach, Mizmor David. Yan Chadinoi b'yem tzoroi sagev Hashem Elohei Yaakov. Yishlach Ezecha Mekodesh u'Mitzin Yisadecha. Yizkor kol min chisecha v'oiloscha yidashne esela. Yitin lecha chilvavecha v'chol hatzoscha yimale. Neranenu b'shua secha v'shem Eloheinu nidga. Yimale Adonai kol mishale secha. Ata yadaiti ki Yeshia Adonai Mashiach. Ya'anehu mishmei kodshe. B'gvuros yesha yimine. Eile b'rechev ve'eile b'susim v'nachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu nazkir. Heima korav v'nefolo v'nachnu kavnu v'nesodod. Adonai Heshia HaMelech Ya'aneinu v'yem kareinu. So we're in Ois Hay, in the Maimer, and what he's explaining is that the difference between how do we elevate the spark that's found in different objects, different articles around the world, and how do we elevate the spark that's in an Nisayon. The difference is that the godly spark that's in objects and different articles, these are things that have substance. And Hashem wants us to take this and to sort of lift it, to elevate it, to transform it, make it into something positive. But the godly spark that's in the Nisayon is all about one big deception. Something which appears to be able to block sort of Hashem, able to go against Hashem's command, something that's able to stop me from doing what Hashem wants. And the truth is that this is a deception, and the Yid could really do what he has to do. So the fact that this is really something that has no substance, it only appears as if it's really something strong, makes it much more difficult to be able to overcome. But therefore, the method that I need to use to overcome this is not like in the other situations where I deal with it and I try to sort of reason with whatever it is that's standing in my way and explain and understand and feel. But the approach has to be just to ignore and dismiss, recognize that it's one big deception, it's not emes. And if I don't give it any substance, it won't have any substance. And if it is strong and it has substance, it's because I'm giving it substance. So as mentioned yesterday, that there are certain things where it's important for a person to think about them, to understand it, ask a question, give an answer, there's a dialogue. And that's how we explain certain things in Torah, or other things that need to be worked out. But over here, I shouldn't even have this dialogue in my head. I should just tell myself, this is what I need to do, and don't give any substance to whatever it is that's trying to stop me from doing that which I need to do. So let's look at the words again inside. We'll start with the third line from the top on page 198. the line that begins with the word L'hischashiv. Sharei Eine Doima. You can't compare L'hanitzut Shebedavar Agashmi. You can compare an Nisayon to the spark that's found in a physical object. These are things shetzrichim levarara. You have to elevate it by working with it. Avalkan, but here, meaning in the case of a Nisayon, why they dchiyadavke, not by working with it, but by dismissing it and not giving it any recognition. V'hainu, these gabras b'inyan hanisyonis, the way to overcome a Nisayon, and that seichasam to defeat it. Harei einzai they have veded the meich v'lev. It's not through the aveda of meich and lev, which is through Torah and davening. So, for example, if a person feels that I'm lacking love for Hashem, you don't just dismiss it. You have to do something to stimulate a feeling of love for Hashem. And how do you do that? You think about the greatness of Hashem. So there's an Aveda. I think about it. I focus on it. I meditate on it. I think about the pleasure there is in Gashmias, the pleasure there is in Ruchnius. And I think about how this is primary, this is secondary, this is so much greater, this is so much more important. So the more I think about it, the more it develops the proper feelings in the heart. So that's through Mayach V'lev. But in the case of an Nisayon, I'm not using my Mayach, I'm not using my Lev. What I need to draw out of myself is the deepest Kayach. That Kayach, which is part of my essence. That's what I need to draw out and bring it to the surface. And with that, I can overcome the Nisayon, which is Galus Etzem HaYechida. This is the Yechida. As we know, the Neshama has 5 Madregas, and this is the highest level Yechida. Udvei Kusa Shel Nefesh Alakis. This is the part of the Nefesh Alakis that's attached to Hashem with an unconditional connection. There's nothing in the world that not only can destroy, but can even weaken it. And unfortunately, it's just hidden, it's behelim. But when it becomes revealed, its strength is unbeatable. Nothing can stand in its way. And therefore, Kol Avedahu Lamed B'Nisayin B'Peil. The Aveda here is just to stand up to the Nisayin and do what has to be done. Not meditating and not thinking and not contemplating. These are all things that will only draw me more into giving substance to the opposition. Something is stopping me from learning or davening. Certain thoughts, a certain mood, a certain person that's getting in the way and preventing me from learning or preventing me from davening. The answer is just do what you have to do. Don't go into having a war. Don't go into confrontation with whatever it is out there that's blocking you. What's a confrontation? When there is a sort of a dialogue. There's a reason to say this, and I have to answer you no, yes, and you go into all that. That's called a dialogue. Someone's calling. Is that a demonstration or someone's again?
I don't know. I pressed the button.
You want to let it the wrong person.
Yeah.
Oh, she's inside. Yeah.
There is a question. Now, when we're living in the house, we have black and white is not too obvious for us. Sometimes we can't like distinguish like true, pure, like
godliness.
and yeah. Pure. But like how do you know that you, like, for example, you have a sign and you need like to act like,
So how do we recognize that it's a Messiah?
yeah.
Basically, it means that there's something that's telling me to go against something which is found in Torah. Here, I should be teaching my children Torah, and then the Nisai means there's something or someone that's trying to prevent me from teaching Torah. That something could be, for example, like a government not allowing people to learn Torah like it was in Russia, or it could be other kind of circumstances. If you ask a person, why do you send your children? I'm talking about a person who understands that you're supposed to study Torah. I mean, I know people like that. They don't send their child to yeshiva, they send them to public school. The reason is because they have a job, a very good job, and the company sent them to live in a certain place. And that place, there's no yeshiva there, so he has no choice. He sends them to public school. So is that the right thing to do? Or the right thing is to send your son to yeshiva? So the Nisayan is that it appears to me that this is my job. It's a tremendous opportunity. So that's what I should go for. And what about my children? So I'll have to compromise. I'll teach them at home, this, that, the other thing. But the truth is, it's against what it says in Torah, that every parent is obligated to give their children a Torah education. Every child should be in a Torah environment. That's very clear. That's black and white. And to me, that's black and white. That's what I need to do. And if I start going into all sorts of reasons and explanations why maybe that's more important, maybe this is more important, once I start going into that, then it's very easy to stumble in this nisayon. Because the rule is like any reason there is for yes, someone could find a reason for no. We don't need more proof than what's going on today. And when you talk to people who in all other areas are smart people, intelligent people, very intelligent people. That's why they're in these colleges, which is elite, and people go there. And yet, when it comes to this subject, they don't make any sense whatsoever. And they're giving all sorts of reasons that it's perfectly okay to do the things that were done. What does it show you? That if you go with logic, logic can find a reason for everything. The Rebbe once gave an example of kibbud av v'em. There's nothing more logical than kibbud av v'em. Parents, they brought me into the world. The parents, they're the ones that raised me, especially the mother, who from the earliest of age is up all night with a little baby, and it takes years and years until finally the child stands on their own. It only makes sense that you should honor the parents who brought you into the world and they raised you and gave you all the things that you have. No, that's not true. They didn't do anything for me. Everything they did was for themselves. Parents naturally love children, so they did it for themselves, not for me. Why should I honor them? Why should I respect them? They did nothing for me. Everything they did was for their own personal pleasure. Could you argue with that? Yes, you could. But you see, anything in the world is a reason for yes, there'll be a reason for no. There's even a halacha in Shulchan Aruch, in Gemara, it's brought down, but also in Shulchan Aruch, but it doesn't apply today. But in a time where Bezdin would rule questions of life and the opposite. In other words, there has to be a ruling whether this person would get a death penalty or not. So there has to be a lot of Chachamim, like 23 or sometimes 71, and they have to decide. And how do we decide? Based on the majority. What if every single person in the Bezdin is has one opinion, the same opinion? Nobody has another opinion. So the Gemara says then that Bezdin becomes disqualified, or the person's case becomes cancelled. I don't remember the actual halacha, but this Bezdin can't rule. Why? Because it can't be that when you're dealing with logic, there's only one way to look at it logically. There's always another way to look at it logically. I mean, I'm saying logically like 2 + 2 = 4, but we have to make a certain decision about things. There's always pros and cons this way, and there's pros and cons. And therefore, how could it be that everybody has the same opinion? There must be something wrong with the logic. So basically, if you're going to start going into an intellectual, logical dialogue with my seichel, then it can, and being that I very much want this because I'm going to make a lot of money, ultimately it's going to have an effect on me, and the other side is going to make sense. And therefore, the only way to do it is I know what I'm supposed to do according to Torah. I'm supposed to keep Shabbos. I'm supposed to eat kosher. I'm supposed to keep the laws of tznius. I'm supposed to keep my children a chinuch. And if anything comes along that says no, the way to deal with it is to say there's nothing to talk about. There's a story with the Frierdiker Rebbe when he was 15 years old on his birthday. His father said to him, it's a very moving story how his father sort of gave him charge of all the activities that he's doing. He became his personal secretary. And in a certain sense, at that point and that incident that happened, he sort of transmitted to him the power of leadership. He was only 15 years old. And he said, brought the pasuk where it says, Chagra ba'ez masneh, oiz. Oiz means strength. So his father said to him, and what does strength mean? Strength means mesiras nefesh. If a person is strong to a limited way, that's not the ultimate strength. Someone stronger can overcome it. Mesiras nefesh means unconditional. Nothing in the world is going to stop me. But he said in Yiddish, what does strength mean? What's a mesiras nefesh? Azoi und nicht anders. I don't know if there's an equivalent to that in English. In Yiddish, it means this is it, and there is nothing to talk about. There's no discussion. So that's what it means, belit tainu minor. You did bring out an important point. I first have to be sure that this is what the Torah wants me to do. Because sometimes we find people doing things under the banner of Torah, but yet it's in the wrong direction. So you have to be first sure that this is what the Torah says. And once I know this is what the Torah says, then I go full force ahead.
It's a very good answer.
Thank you. Okay. If someone comes along and says that you should drive to shul on Shabbos, they're also giving a Torah reason. If they don't drive to shul on Shabbos, they're not going to have a shul. They'll become alienated from Yiddishkeit. They won't be associated. So first you have to know what does the Torah say. Once I know that, then I can go ahead. But to learn and to daven or conduct myself with darkei Torah mitzvah. And a person should do this with all intense strength, with an inner chayas vitality, should take him atzmi b'lishum taino mayna klal, just with absolute force, no dialogue and no discussion. This is it. As the only way we could overcome a nisoy. And it looks like this is sort of giving an example. Every Yid, the Gemara says, Maminim b'nei maminim. What does it mean? We're children believers of believers. It means just like children have certain genes from their parents, this is a spiritual gene that every Yid inherently believes in Hashem. We're all descendants of Avraham Avinu, and he was one who believed in Hashem. All his descendants have this natural, inherent emunah in Hashem, emunah pshuta, simple faith. What does simple faith mean? There's a certain faith that comes as a result of deep thinking. For example, somebody who is not religious and is exposed for the first time to believe in Hashem, there's no way that they can just simply go into it. They have to have questions and they have to have answers. It has to make sense. And according to Torah, even this person, after all the questioning and all the answers, and finally he makes the decision that I'm accepting this as truth, they're not doing something new. They're really revealing what's going on beneath the surface. Which means inherently they believe, but there are things in life that cause a blockage. And whatever they believe deep down doesn't come up to the surface. So when I have a dialogue, or I go to classes, or I have this argument with my shliach, and I'm fighting and arguing for weeks or for months, and finally I see how it makes sense, and this is really the right way. At the end of the day, it's true, it came after a lot of good answers to good questions, but all that did was remove the obstacles, and the pnimius came out, the real emunah came out. So what's emunah pshuta? Emunah pshuta means natural emunah. Emunah pshuta is something like a child. A child has natural emunah. You tell them something, they believe you. But with a child, you would say the reason why they're like that, they're gullible because they don't have intellect. So there's nothing there to challenge the Amunah. So they accept whatever you tell them. You tell them Hashem did this, Hashem did this. You tell them there's a malach coming every Friday night to the house. There's a malach coming every Friday night to the house. Seichel raises questions. But the truth is every Yid has Amunah Pshuta, which means we all have this simple, natural faith in Hashem that doesn't need logic and explanations and proof. For some reason or other, it's just natural for us. And what is it? The Hu Yisbarach Levadehu Ve'in Zelasei, that Hashem is really the only one, and there's nothing else that has any power other than Him. And HaTeira mitzvahs nitzchim hema. I also naturally believe that Teira mitzvahs are eternal, and there's nothing in the world that's going to change it. And therefore, the take of Zeh, with this strength, with this force, Yamei Chazak L'Kayim Mitzvah Hashem, L'Laharer Achavidosav Yisbarach, not to question Hashem's actions, what He's doing. Because the person could say to themselves, Lama Hoysa Gazais Malafanav, why did Hashem do this? The Dafka Be'ikros Mashiach, how come Hashem did such a thing? That Dafka in this last generation, which is the heel of all the generations, which means it's the weakest spiritually, our spiritual capacity is less than all other previous generations, just like the heel has less to offer than all the other organs in the body. We're neshamis the muchis, we're neshamis of a lower spiritual plane. You Dafka in our generation, Hashem gave us such great big tests. So a person's thoughts could sort of challenge Hashem as if Hashem is not sort of doing things which are really just. Hashem is not dealing with us and not recognizing our weakness, our deficiencies. And why is He doing this? That's not the way a person should be thinking, and the person naturally thinks. He knows with absolute certainty. Kiboy, Bochar, Havaya, Hashem is the one that chose. We shouldn't think that upstairs there are a lot of neshamas and they hang around, and if you happen to make the wrong move, you fall into a hole and you come down to Elam Hazah. How come I was born today? You missed that opening over there, you just fell down. No, it's a plan. Every neshama has the time and the place, when they're supposed to come down, where they're supposed to come down, to which set of parents they're going to come down. Everything is designed by Hashem very, very precisely. Kiboy, Bochar Havaya, Hashem chose him. Lahirid Nishmase Bizman Zeh, to bring his neshama down to this time in history. And in this place in history, L'Tevase, for his benefit. Not because of someone else, but because that's the benefit of your neshama. And if Hashem brought you down to such a place in such a time, so who Yizbarach Nasam Boy Kayar V'Oiz Lamed Ben. Hashem certainly gave you the power and the ability, and you have the capacity to overcome the test, which means Hashem would never, Chas v'Shalom, put you into a situation and not give you the tools to overcome it. He gave you the tools and the strength to overcome it. He has the koyach not only not to be influenced by the surroundings, but he has a koyach opposite. He has the ability to refine the world around him, and to add light. So not only the darkness won't affect me, but I have the power to transform the darkness around me. That's why Hashem put me there. Like it says, this is probably a Gemara. No, it's a Medrash. No, Gemara. It says in Gemara, Hashem doesn't come. The word trunya is a very unusual word. I don't even know if I found it anywhere else, anywhere except for this Maimar Chazal. But this word, apparently, and it looks like it's an Aramaic because it finishes with an aleph. Any word that the last letter is an aleph is Aramaic. So it means overwhelming demands. Hashem doesn't come with overwhelming demands to his creation. If he does ask us to do something, he only asks us to do it according to our koyach, the capacity that we have. And when he gives us reward for what we did, He gives us kafi koichai according to his capacity. And he explains, Kasher Adam Oisa kafi koichai, we do things which in our limited capacity, but according to what we could do. But then Hashem gives with his capacity, which is unlimited. And very often we find, whether it be a teacher or an educator or a boss in a work in a job, that they make demands of the people that are working for them or students that are studying by them, and they just don't make the right evaluation. They demand of them more than they can do. They tell them every day in the 8 hours of work you have to accomplish A, B, and C, but it's impossible. Maybe they could do it, but normal people can't do that, and it's because of a lack of understanding. They don't get it. They don't realize, either because they themselves are more capable, so they don't realize other people can. Well, usually that's the reason. They could probably do it, so they think that everybody can do it. Hashem is infinite, and Hashem is bli gvul. Hashem is beyond and above. But now at the same time, He knows exactly who we are. He knows exactly how much koyach we have. And if He makes a demand of me, it'll be only according to the koyach. On the other hand, when He gives them a reward for what I did, He gives me according to His koyach, which is above nature. So if that's the case, if I recognize, number one, that Hashem is in charge of everything, He's the one who sent my neshama down in this time and this place, Vadai Hadavar, it's absolute certain. Asher HaKadosh Baruch Hu Noisan Lei Koyach Lizgaber, Al Kol HaManiz B'Kuvim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him the koyach to overcome all the things that are preventing and blocking, Ulahashlim HaKavanah Al Yena, and to fulfill the Kavanah El Yena, which means the divine purpose, why my neshama came down to this world. So everybody has a specific shlichus, and all the details about me and my life are related to that shlichus. The date that I was born, the place that I was born, and everything else that he mentioned before. It all has to do with my shlichus. And after that, it's all in my hands. So he's going back to that example of it. A person might have an issue in Amunah. He looks around and says, look, it's such a difficult time. People are so much, not so much weaker than they were in previous generations. Why Hashem is doing this? Question why only weakens us. It sort of takes away the motivation to do what I need to do, because I feel something is not really just over here. Something's not really correct. So he says the person should realize, no, everything is from Hashem, well designed, and only Hashem knows more than anyone else what I could do and what I can do. And this is connected to the purpose why it was created. And once I realize that, I just have to go forward, and I have the koyach to do it. Yeah.
I do feel like Hashem tests people, and just tests that are brutal. And okay, they have to survive, but it's be dying inside, just physical stuff or emotional stuff, or
I think if a person would really understand what it's saying here,
okay,
and truly understand that it's from Hashem and it's for a purpose, it's my shlichus, it wouldn't be as brutal as it is without that knowledge. In other words, if I would understand Hashem in general, that He's the ultimate of truth and the ultimate of kindness and the ultimate of emes, and He's created me for a purpose, then the part of the way I feel, the negative way I feel, has a lot to do with not seeing the meaning and the purpose in what's going on. We have stories of people that tell you, I saw Gamzul Teva in my personal life. Something happened, and I thought it was terrible. And then later, it turned out that this was actually a benefit. Had they known earlier what they know later, they never would have reacted the way they did when the thing happened. I think I told the story once. I knew someone, a wealthy man, who had some connection with him. And he called me up one day. He was devastated because he had a partner, and together they were involved in investing money into a business. What they did was they bought a whole, I guess it was a lot of buildings, and the buildings they bought would cost $11 million. And and then they would fix up the buildings, raise the rents, and the plan was to make something like $100 million from all the things that were going on. For months and months, they were dealing with lawyers and making plans and finding out what they can do legally and what not. And when we got close to the end, the partner said that he's pulling out. Okay, pulling out. He was supposed to put in 5,500, and the partner $1 million, the other partner $5.5 million, and pulled out. A short while after that, he finds out that the partner didn't really pull out. He made copies of all the plans, and then he went and he made the investment alone. In other words, once he realized I can make so much money, why do we have to share it with someone else? He found some other way of getting money, and he bought this property all by himself for $11 million. He was devastated. First of all, he felt very violated, like cheated, deceived, and also it was a loss. Here he could have made so much money. He was very, very upset. Whether that's the reason or not, but literally within the week, he had, Baruch Hashem, it was not very severe. He was by the doctor, telling the doctor, and while he was by the doctor, he had a heart attack. So he did everything that needed to be done very quickly, and he was able to recover, Baruch Hashem. But he had a heart attack, obviously from aggravation. He called me close to a year later. Rabbi, you're not going to believe what happened. This wasn't in New York, some other state. And he said, just recently they changed the law in that state. The new law, you can't raise the rents. If you can't raise the rents, he's not going to make any profit. I mean, he wasn't a from yet, so his first words were, first of all, I have my sweet revenge.
It's so funny.
Second of all, he said, I now see that God actually protected me. And then he was upset. Why is Hashem doing this to me? And now he was getting involved a little bit. And now he said, I see God actually protected me. I could have lost $5.5 million. And I said to him, what if you would have known then that this is what's going to happen? Would you think you would have been so aggravated? He said, no, I'd be very happy. But you don't know it then. You know it later. So I guess if you know in advance what the good is going to be, it's not as brutal. So yes, we don't know the details, but if I have the emunah that there is that coming, then it definitely won't be as brutal. So part of it is that this Indian should be very, very clear to me, and it should be able to penetrate. That's what we know as das. Knowing it is one thing, and not chas v'shalom taking away from anything that a person, God forbid, suffers. But I'm saying the knowledge that there's meaning to it, there's purpose to it, and the purpose is positive, is just a matter of time when it's going to come, will make it easier for a person to overcome the difficult stage in the middle.
I have some thoughts about certain things that are it's over, you can't take, if a parent was cremated and you're from and they weren't, it's a devastating, it's an example like that, it's how does someone actually get over and get past it?
It's another Indian.
You're saying, okay, fine. I'm saying everything happens for the best.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, so.
We're talking now about how to approach the Nisayan that's coming to me now.
Okay.
Then Cain, the last line on the bottom, the second to the last line, if that's the case, so the work in the Nisayan is not with the object or with the person or with the situation outside of me. The work I need to do is with myself. And the work is to bring out that strength within me, to stand strong. Basically, it's about standing strong, not bending, not bending and giving in. Lamed b'nesoyan, to stand up to the test. L'skasher b'limud ha'Torah v'kiyum ha'mitzvos, to make that commitment that I'm going to learn, I'm going to do mitzvah, I'm not going to allow anything to get in the way, and not give substance to whatever it is that's giving me reasons to do otherwise. Now it goes back to the beginning of the Maimer, where it said, Zehu matoivo alecho Yaakov, how good are your tents? What are the tents? But the knesses, but the midrashos, the shuls, the yeshivas, that idea shkida, through studying Torah, and studying Torah in a way that I really immerse myself in it. But Oisis HaTorah, B'shuri Erev, learning at night, or Baker, Barabim Davka, specifically learning together with the group. It's interesting, the Friedrich Rebbe emphasized this a lot. I mean, the Gemara says, it's found in Pirkei Avos, that when 10 people learn together, then the Shekhinah is there. And even though the Shekhinah is there, even if one person learns Torah, even if 3 people, 5 people, but it's a whole different level of Shekhinah when 10 people learn together. And as a result of that, when 10 people learn together, the strength you get from the Torah study is so much more than if you learn Torah on your own. So especially in those days, where there was a lot of tests, and people needed to be strengthened in their Yiddishkeit, so it was very important not just to going to shiurim and learning, but to learn in a group. The reason why he says day and night, because that's the halacha. For a man, there's an obligation. There's a pasuk, v'argisa b'yoyimam v'layla. He should learn Torah day and night. So it means a man, if he learns Torah a whole day and doesn't learn at night, he violated a certain commandment. Even if you learn a little bit, but there has to be some learning by day, there has to be some learning by night.
So what does it mean that you need to wake up and just learn something? Like what's a phrase night? Like what's that?
A night or day?
Night.
Night means once it's sundown, it's shkia,
Okay.
and it's nighttime. Of course, they come home from work, they're with their family, they eat supper, they have to take care of things, but I have to find time for learning, because there's a pasuk that says it's an obligation on a man. You have to learn Torah by day and by night. Then when it says Mishkinisecha Yisrael, what is that alluding to? Avas Reim, the Kinyan Midas Tevis Haba Malimut Pnimis HaTorah. This is specifically referring to the Abba, the love of Abbas Yisrael amongst friends. Kinyan Midas, acquiring good Midas. The first part, which is about learning, is more academic, learning. This part is more about emotionally being connected to Hashem through having Abbas Yisrael and through having a proper Midas. And that comes more from Limud Pnimis HaTorah, from learning the inner part of the Torah, which is Chassidus. That this is what the pasuk is saying. You gave those that fear you a neses, which means you give them an nisyonos to overcome, and through that to rise to a higher spiritual plane. Lamed chazak lizgaber al kol nisyonos. So the whole point is to be strong and not to bend. You know, when it comes to interpersonal relationship, the whole thing is to bend. Is that famous story where husband and wife came to a Rav, and they said that they want to get divorced, and he asked them why. They started to talk about what they argue about all the time, and he said to them that it's not so hard to make peace. And he said in Shemona Esrei, when you finish davening, how do you say Oisa Shalom? You bend a little bit here, you bend a little bit there, take a few steps back, and that's how you say Oisa Shalom. So in a relationship, if you bend a little bit here, you bend a little bit there, you're ready to take a few steps back, then 2 people can have peace. But if you stand and say, I am not budging from what I want, and the other person says, and I am not budging from what I want, then they clash. That's an interpersonal relationship. When it comes to an Nisayan, it's just the opposite. You have to stand as strong and not even bend and not allow any kind of flexibility at all. Stand strong. There's a story with Rabbi Yisrael Ruzhiner, one of the biggest tzaddikim that lived in the times of the Tzemach Tzedek, that somebody once asked him if he can give him a certain line, a certain thought, that this will give him strength for the rest of his life. And he told him a story. He said there was once a king, that he had 2 subjects that were very close friends of his. And one time they violated one of the king's orders, and they were arrested. There was a trial, and the verdict was that they have to be executed. And they came to the king to sign the execution. I can't, these are my friends, I can't sign it. But then his ministers were arguing with him that if you don't sign it, it'll have an effect on the whole country. People will see that, it's not a place which is really disciplined. And they're right. But on the other hand, they're my friends. So he was trying to think of a way out, and he came up with a plan. Instead of outright execution, their verdict will be they have to walk on a tightrope. If they walk on the tightrope and they come safely to the other side, they're going to be freed. If they fall down and get killed, God forbid, they got killed. What do they gain by that? First of all, there's some hope that they could live and survive. And second of all, he doesn't feel that he gave an outright execution. And people will see, even if they get freed, that you can't say there's no discipline because they could have lost their lives. Anyway, these two people, as far as they were concerned, they were already dead because they never walked on a tightrope. There's no way they're going to do it and not fall down. But the first guy gets up there. This is the story that he's telling. And he walks from one end to the other end, and he makes it. Comes down. And the second guy races over to him and says, quick, tell me, what did you do? I have no idea. I don't know what I did. I don't know how it happened. It's got to be something you can tell me. I have to go up there now. Give me something. He says, the only thing I can think of is that if I feel that I'm bending a little bit, losing my balance to the right, I straighten out right away. I don't wait until I'm like a little bit more over. As soon as I feel that there's any kind of losing balance to one side, I immediately straighten out. That's what he told me. So his message for him in life was that if you feel that you're sort of deviating even one hairline from where you should be standing, stop right then. Because if you wait till it gets sort of something bigger, you won't be able to pull back. In other words, if you wait till you're bending over halfway, you can't pull yourself up again. Your weight will pull you down. So the time to stop is as soon as you feel a hairline of a deviation. So that's what I'm come to the sign. The main thing is to stand strong and not to allow myself to bend.
So what happened to the second guy?
What happened to the second guy? I never heard that part of the story. I hope he made it. Yep. Okay, good Shabbos, everybody.
True story? True story?
Shabbos Mubarak. The story is a mushroom. Right, yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi Majeski. Good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi Majeski.